Dear students, welcome to our science episodes. Today we are going to discuss adaptation in living organisms. Adaptation and diversity of living organisms. The diversity of habitats where living organisms live is the most important reason for living organisms' diversity in order to cope with the surrounding environment. So, the changes in the environment is the main reason for the differences and the diversities among living organisms. What are some environmental changes that we are going to talk about, such as the climate change, the food diversity, and the different water sources? Can you see this? This is a camel pad. The camel legs end with a thick, flat pad to enable it wandering among the hot desert sands. What about this? This is a horse hoof. The leg of the horse ends with a strong, solid end that helps the horse go through the rocky soil. Can you see the difference between both legs? The difference between the structure of the pad of the camel and the hoof of the horse allows each organism to cope with the surrounding environment, sands and desert here, and rocky soil here. This is what is called adaptation. We can define adaptation as a body structure or organ's biological function in a living organism to adapt to the environment where it lives. We have three types of adaptations. Number one, structural adaptation, which is anatomical. It is related to the body parts or the structure of the body, such as the camel pad or the horse hoof. Can you give me more examples? Yes, the fins of the fish, the wings of the birds, the teeth and the claws of the tigers and lions, and so on. Functional adaptation. It is related to organs, functions, and tissues which perform specific function, such as the sweat glands in your body secreting sweat in case of high temperature, snakes secreting poison sometimes. The third one is behavioral adaptation, and it's related to a behavior of a living organism, such as birds migrating from cold to warm areas in winter. Now, I will give you the example and you will write down the type of adaptation. Mouth watering or secreting saliva when smelling food. This is functional. Salmon fish migrating during certain times. This is behavioral. Legs of frogs enable them to swim on water surface. This is structural. Can you give reason why are camels called chips of the desert? This is because they show different means of adaptations, structural, functional, and behavioral, to be able to cope with the harsh desert environment. So camels do not show only structural, but also functional and behavioral kinds of adaptations. But what are the reasons behind adaptation? The most important reason is getting food, escaping from enemies. The most important reason is getting food and also escaping from enemies. Let's see adaptation in motion. Sometimes limbs are modified to the desired type of motion. So we have modification of front limbs in mammals. So the paddles of whales and dolphins for swimming, wings of bats for flying, legs of the horses for running, long arms of monkeys for climbing and catching things. All these are mammals, and All these are mammals with different front limbs to adapt to the environment they live in. And all these are examples of structural adaptations. Of course, when we are talking about a body part, we are talking about structural adaptation. The relation between adaptation and food. The beaks and the legs are modified to the desired type of food. So in birds, hawks and vultures have sharp and strong crooked beaks to tear the prey. And they have also 4 fingers, 3 at the front and 1 at the back, with strong and sharp claws to control pouncing the prey. Not all birds are like this. Like, for example, hoops and cattle, egret, feeding on worms. They have very long and thin beaks to pick the worms from the soil. And they also have long legs and thin, ending in fingers to walk in water. Birds such as ducks, feeding on mosses and fish, have wide indented beaks to help them filter food from water. Their legs are flat with webbed fingers to be able to swim. Now we are going to discuss adaptation in insectivorous plants. Insectivorous plants are predator plants, catching insects. They digest them, they eat them and digest them to absorb nitrogenous substances their bodies need, like Drosera, Dione, and Halophila. They have modified leaves that are able to catch insects. Adaptation and environment. What do you know about hibernation? It's a state of inactivity when some animals hide in burrows, like some reptiles and insects. They bury themselves, stop feeding, and their activities decrease until it is warm again. This is called hibernation. Estivation. If the hibernation is in winter, estivation is in summer, when the temperature rises up, especially in deserts, and there is shortage of water. Some living organisms become dormant and hide to escape the hot weather, such as jerboas, desert snails, and some insects. Migration. Some birds migrate from cold and polar regions during winter to warm areas, and they return back to their original habitats in spring. These birds inherit this behavior, where they migrate into the same places at the same time every year, such as the quail bird. All these are examples of behavioral adaptations: hibernation, estivation, and migration. Now we will see some forms of adaptation for hiding. Some animals can modify their shape or change their color to catch prey or escape from enemies. Look at this picture. This is leaf insect. It looks exactly like a leaf. And this is a stick insect. It looks like branches of plants. What about this? This is a chameleon. The chameleon can color itself like the surrounding environment. Do you know about camouflage? Camouflage is the ability of some living organisms to hide from their enemies or to capture prey by resembling the surrounding environment. Look at this picture. Can you see the owl? It's hidden within the environment. So when the animal is resembling the surrounding environment, this is called camouflage. Time for questions. Write the scientific term. It is the ability of some organs and tissues to perform specific function. Functional adaptation. Predator plants that catch insects and digest them to absorb nitrogenous substances. Insectivorous plants. Some animals bury themselves, stop feeding, and their activities decrease during winter. Hibernation. Dear students, thank you for watching. See you later in other science episodes.